Well, thanks again for joining us on the program tonight, where we'll begin with this mounting pressure on the governors of the Niger Delta states to give account of how the 13% derivation money disbursed to them following the revelation by the presidency that a ninth state in the club received 625.43 billion naira from the derivation subsidy and Shopee refunds from the Federation account in the last 2 years. The oil-producing states that received the derivation subsidy and Shopee refunds are Abia, Akwa Ibom, Bayelsa, Cross River, Delta, Edo, Imo, Ondo, and Rivers State. Recall that the Rivers State Governor Nyesom Wike had alleged that the oil-producing states had refused to disclose payments made to them by the federal government for the outstanding 13% derivation. The presidency also alleged that some governors were involved in diverting local government funds. Meanwhile, the Delta State government has disassociated its governor, Ifeanyi Okowa, from the allegations by President Muhammadu Buhari that some state governors are involved in diverting local government funds. Our Chief Press Secretary to the Delta State government, Olisa Ifejiaka, says Okowa's administration has remained transparent and accountable to Deltans and would never be counted amongst governors who, if any, that steals local government funds. He says in case the president has information that such pilfering happens in some states, the reverse is the case in Delta, where rather than touch the funds of the local government, the governor gives them nothing less than 300 million naira monthly to augment their salaries and pension bills.
As the man who has all information about issues in the country, I want to think that he knows the governors who fall into that category of so-called thieves he was referring to. You and I know our governor, Senator Dr. Ifeanyi Okowa, does not belong there. He's one of the first governors, if not the first, to embrace local government autonomy when it was agreed on. All party should desist from telling lies to Deltans and Nigerians. Unfortunately, Deltans are Deltans. They know the truth.
Well, let's now cross over to Delta State and speak to the Commissioner for Information in the state, Charles Aniagwu. Well, Charles, thank you so much for being here tonight on the program. And of course, looking at the disbursement according to the federal government, well, Delta State in recent months actually received the second largest. But beyond all of that, questions now are being raised as to what these funds, especially from the Federation account, were used for. Let me give you an opportunity to give us, an idea as to what the Delta State government has been doing in terms of using this money from the federal account for the people.
Well, thank you very much, Amaka. Good evening, viewer. Well, I want to start by, first of all, reminding us that as a state, and of course, I will speak for Delta State, where by the grace of God, I also serve as a member of the State Executive Council. We want to make it clear that it's not as if the federal government is just like a father who wants to give out pocket money to his children or students. Federal government is not extending any pocket money to Delta State. I also want to believe the number of states in the South. What we got from the federal government is what is legitimate that we should have gotten even far before now, in line with the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And you do know that on yearly basis, states prepare their budget. In the case of Delta, we try as much as possible to prepare our budget even before the beginning of the year. We submit it to the House of Assembly after, of course, other rigors have been followed, which include a citizen participation in the budget preparation process. And then we proceed from there to the Ministry of Economic Planning to defend the different budgetary estimates. And from that moment, it proceeds to the State Executive Council, where it's also further deliberated upon. And then we're able to cross the T's and dot the I's. And from there, it proceeds to the House of Assembly, where our House of Assembly members working through the appropriation committees and other subcommittees of the appropriation committee committee examine the budgetary estimates with a view to determining whether indeed the subheads are what are actually quite justified. Now, at the federal level, you do remember that for quite some time now, once they are preparing the budget, they take even into cognizance what is called the Abacha loot. And so, once we are preparing our budget to the tune of as much as maybe 390 billion, or even at the moment, a little above 400 billion, the expected receipts from the central government on account of the 13% is part of the figures we consider in preparing that budget. Then when you also have some form of funds that ordinarily should have accrued to the oil producing states by way of the 13% derivation, but the federal government, because they didn't follow certain due process, didn't remit such funds. And when such fund comes and the federal government give it to us even after it has lost value, individuals begin to play politics around it. Now, in the case of Delta, we have continued to justify for our people the funds that comes to us by the number of projects we have executed. In Delta, we're back on the process of constructing over 950 roads, spanning as much as 1,900 kilometers. We have been very busy constructing as much as 26 bridges, out of which 6 has been completed. We have also started a process of ensuring that our people are empowered through different job creation platforms. And let me make it clear, the bridges we build in Delta are not just bridges in the city. We call them bridges of possibilities, where we're able to link up our local communities together for the purpose of getting them to be able to interact with their kids and kin in neighboring communities, and at the same time able to evacuate their farm produce. That is a way of ensuring that our local communities also is able to make some form of a progress with their farming, with farming, which of course is their preoccupation. Now, I wouldn't know whether you want me to also proceed to the aspect of the local government. Here in Delta, the figure you talked about earlier was what we used to extend to the local government. Now, right from 2021, we have been extending as much as 500 million to our 25 local government areas. That, of course, is without prejudice to the 10%, which we also usually make available to the local governments on account of the provision of the Constitution, which makes it clear that every state is expected to give 10% of its internally generated revenue to the states, which is the essence of the joint state-local government accounts. So whatever that comes from the central government by way of allocation to the local government, we first of all add another 500 million. We also proceed to add the 10% from our internally generated revenue sources. The reason why we do that is to ensure that the local governments are able to live up to their billings, particularly their obligation to their workers at the local government level. At the time we assumed office in 2015, our local governments were very much indebted to their workers, but we tried in the course of time to assist them in defraying that particular burden. At a time when we got some bailout fund, you recall 10 billion naira from the federal government, we extended in one fell swoop as much as 3 billion naira to our local government. All these figures I'm mentioning, please, Amaka, get your reporters, let them interrogate any of the local government chairmen, even those who have left office since 2015. Ask them, what do we do here in Delta? If there are governors who have been very busy helping themselves with local government funds, that is not in Delta. We have tried as much as possible to assist our local government so that they're able to also meet up with their obligation.
Right.
What has become?
Right. Well, Charles.
What has become a major challenge, Amaka?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so we'll come to the challenges area because, you know, looking at the records of Delta State, I do know that despite the monies received from the federal allocation, there was a request, a loan request, which, of course, was actually criticized. Even the gubernatorial candidate for the APC had called it reckless. But the governor had come out to explain that 150 billion naira was actually at the back. It was using that as a backdrop of expected statutory accruals. But the question is, one of the issues raised by the presidency is not the lack of projects. It says sometimes state governors embark on huge projects, and this, at the end of the day, will be detrimental to the people. More people are poor now than ever, according to the presidency, because of gigantic projects that might not commiserate with the needs of the people. Let's talk about the situation in Delta vis-a-vis what the presidency is alleging.
Amaka, it's unfortunate that we are in political period, and you do expect that a number of persons, including the APC governorship candidate in Delta, who want to play politics even with the facts on ground. In Delta, our people know that in actual fact, both those who live in the creeks, that we have tried as much as possible to add value to the life of our people through the different projects that we have executed. I mentioned a while ago that we have different platforms through which we empower our people, train them, equip them, and ensure that they become entrepreneurs in their own rights. But beyond that, the projects we execute in Delta are projects that will touch the people, and not projects that for the people that you want to just grandstand to claim that you have done something. Here in Delta, once we are executing a project, like I mentioned earlier, before the budgeting process starts, we carry out what we call citizen participation. We ask our citizens, bring them together to ask through a forum as to what their needs are. And once they talk about those needs, we match it with the intentions of government vis-a-vis the thematic areas that the governor have outlined at the point he was seeking the election right from 2015. We have 5 basic areas. One, to ensure that our people have become more peaceful, which is a peace and harmony. Another one is to ensure that we embark on strategic reforms, that programs that will bring about creation of jobs. Another is in the aspect of reforms in education and the health sector, and of course, reforms in the agricultural sector. We did all this to help to bring our communities, to make them to realize their God-given potentials. Today, Delta has become very, very peaceful, not because the people who before now were agitating were taken away from Delta, but because we tried as much as possible to take development to the creeks. Don't forget, at the time we came into office, Delta was 4th in oil production. How did we come to become number 1 in oil production? Because we addressed those needs that were agitating the minds of our people. Today, if you go to the creeks, you will see that we have paved roads in our creeks, and our people are happy for us, and that is why they are no longer approaching the pipelines. In those days, whenever they ask for anything, they will tell them that it's in the pipeline. And so at the time, they decide to begin to approach the pipeline, hoping that they will be able to get those things that you call dividends of democracy. But when we came, we brought out those projects from the pipeline and make them visible to the people. And so that's why you can see roads, you can see schools, you can see hospitals in the creeks, not to talk up in the upland. We have also tried as much as possible to reach out to 270 wards through these empowerment schemes that are done with a sense of equity and justice. And so when people are campaigning, we invite people to Delta. We want any media person, any of the civil society groups, let them come, not just to hear us on TV because they say talk is cheap. But in our own case, Okowa walks the talk. We will show you the projects. You will see them visible. You will even begin to ask us, how do we get all the money to perform the things we carried out? Now, you mentioned the issue of the loan we talked about. It was a bridging finance because we do know that the federal government have agreed that they were going to give us back as much as 245 billion naira. And we felt that for us to have value, now that the naira is bouncing further worse than even a quarters football, that in the course of time, this money will lose the value even when we have a whole lot of things to do. And we needed to approach the bank after, of course, we have followed all the processes, including going to the House of Assembly, which some other states did not. Those states that claim that the federal government has given them all their money, ask them, did the federal government not say that they will pay this money instrumentally for a period of 5 years? How come they have collected all their money? What they did was to approach a bank and then embark on a process of discount. Just like if somebody is owing you 20 naira and then you ask the bank, please, can you give me 13? And then you can take the remaining 7 and go and collect the money from federal government. Perhaps without even following the process of getting approval from the House of Assembly. We followed the process, and it was in the course of following that process that individuals started raising alarm. But those who went behind back door, without following those processes, nobody knew that they did until they started confessing that they have collected all their money from the federal government. As I speak to you, out of that particular 245 billion naira, we have only gotten about 14.8 or thereabout from the federal government, which is why we have been able to access 30 billion naira from a facility. And it is believed that once we get that, we're able to, of course, follow through with a number of our projects. So, Amaka, in Delta, we are not playing with local government funds. We are making funds, additional funds available to them. In Delta, we are carrying out projects in line with the funds that are supposed to accrue to us legitimately. The federal government has not given us any pocket money. It is the federal government that defaulted in the course of time. This idea of making it look as if Niger Delta states are getting funds that they are not supposed to get is just pure politics.
Right.
The funds that is coming to us is on account of the law. Ordinarily,
Absolutely.
if we were following proper derivation, you know it would have been more than 13%.
Well, but as it stands, the law only permits for 13%, and some would actually argue beyond, the presidency. Some would say some of these projects that not just Delta State carry out, especially oil-producing state, it might not be commensurate with the funds that have gone out. But for now, we'll have to say thank you so much to you, Charles Anyago, of course, the Commissioner of Information in Delta State,
Thank you, Amaka.
for helping us unpack these issues. Thank you.